Welcome to the Sharpe Way. Yes, I am live again. I'm sure some of you are tired of seeing me, but I'm still back. You can't get rid of me no matter what you do. I'm so happy being here on a very special Sharpe Way guest show. Guys, if you like what I'm doing, if you like what I'm talking about, then you have to go out, like, comment, share. It matters. It's how our media grows. It's how our media is noticed. It's how people realize that we're doing something special here. Don't forget, obviously, I push it every time. Follow me on Twitter, the Sharpe Way Twitter. Follow me on Facebook, the Sharpe Way. Why are you looking at me? Go to Facebook right now and like the Sharpe Way. Also, subscribe to my YouTube page. It is important for you to subscribe to the YouTube page so that those cool algorithms work. See what a techie guy I am. Those cool algorithm things work. And of course, if you have some cash, head over to patreon.com/SharpeWay. Throw me $5, $10, $20 so we can keep this show going. I am very happy today to have a guest that I feel blessed to have. It's a man who has helped me to be a better consultant, to help me to be a better friend, to help me to be a better leader, a man who's shown me that empathy and emotional intelligence is really the key to happier relationships, happier life, happier business, and everything else I'm talking about. And right now in this world, we need empathetic communication. We need emotional intelligence more than ever. The man himself, Dr. Mark Goulston. How are you, sir?
Wow, that's a lot of energy for a libertarian guy. I like it.
Absolutely, yes. I gotta say, you are someone who has a background that most people would be surprised. I mean, you've written books. I always talk about your book, Just Listen. I chat about that always. I tell people they should read it. It will help tremendously. You were a hostage negotiator. I mean, you're a consultant. I mean, you're a doctor. You're a writer. You're so many things. I am so happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me on. I have to clarify, I was a hostage negotiation trainer. So
okay.
I got to make that distinction. So they would bring me in, FBI and police, and I would help train them, go occasionally on some drive-alongs. And it was interesting. My background is I was a suicide interventionist. I was a practicing psychiatrist for 30 years, and none of my patients killed themselves, which is pretty cool, I guess.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And I'll tell you, I've been trying to figure out what it is that I did.
Okay.
And I figured it out, and I don't know if you or any of your listeners know of there's a technology called CRISPR.
Yep, I know it. It's DNA.
CRISPR goes into the genes and fixes it. Mm-hmm. So what I discovered, because I was trying to figure out why aren't they killing themselves?
Yep.
And what I discovered is something that I call targeted interventional empathy. Mm-hmm. And what that means is I learned to listen into people's eyes and go into their hope. And when you listen into people's eyes and you don't get scared away by what you see,
yep, and
you listen for the hurt, the fear, and the anger, it's always screaming at you.
You helped me so much, and I know it's because I'm a love fest, guys. Don't be mad. I'm fanboying a little bit. Don't be mad at me. But you and I sat down and had lunch in LA, 6 years ago, give or take, in that area. And you helped me so much understanding that by that conversation. And I'm being very forward with you. And some people who are watching know this. You have literally helped me save people's lives because I took what you told me, I made it my own. And I now communicate with people who are really in trouble. And I can now see people because of what you taught me and reading your books. But because of what you taught me, I can now see that pain a lot faster than I ever saw before. And I can now address it. And I'm not afraid of it, as many people are. I'm not afraid of that pain. And I'm also not afraid of taking the time that it takes to sometimes draw that out and the time that it takes to really listen. And that's something that prior to really having that conversation, I wasn't so good at.
Well, I'll tell you. So I actually spoke in Moscow in October, along with a Nobel Prize winner, a guy named Daniel Kahneman. He wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow.
I've read his books before. Kahneman's a genius.
And there were three of us, and so I was really I was kind of humbled to be one of the headliners along with him. But I went there to introduce my latest thinking on listening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually called, the talk was called Change Everything You Know About Communication.
Oh, I like that.
And what I said to them, and actually I can do it here. Take a look at this. This is a talking stick. This is that's a Cherokee talking stick.
Yep.
And so there's actually a video clip of me doing this, and if you go to my website, markgoulston.com, and so imagine this, 1,000 Russian managers, this wasn't a political thing. These were managers and CEOs. So I get up there and they hear me in Russian. I don't speak in Russian. It's spontaneously translated. And I go like this, and I'm going to do it with you, and I'm going to do it with the audience right now. And so I pick this up, and they look at me like I'm crazy, which is partially true. And I said, this is a talking stick. And in Indian councils, whoever holds it gets to talk, and everybody has to shut up and listen to them as long as they're talking to it. So they're looking at me. This guy is nuts. And then I go like this. But I use it as a listening stick. And then I looked at the audience, and I said, if I focus, and I'm going to do this actually with you, Larry. And I said to the audience, and I'll say it to you, if I focus on what you're listening to, you're listening to me. And if I can rattle off some bullets, you'll try some of them. You won't try most of them. Some of them will work. And if I'm engaging and entertaining, you'll give me your mind for an hour.
Sure.
If I focus on what you're listening to. And I said, now that's a transactional conversation. And then I put on my NPR voice. And I said, but if I focus instead on what you're listening for, and I get it right without you telling me, you'll give me everything.
Yes.
And so what I said to them, and I'm just going to do it with you. So if I focus on what you're listening for, Larry, what you're listening for is your listeners trust you. And you don't want to disappoint people who trust you.
Very true.
And you're listening for something that will give them immediate value to make their lives better.
100%.
You're listening for something that's not only immediate value, but something that's doable by them. So they don't have to be a genius. They don't have to buy a book. They don't have to do anything. And you're listening for, if I could give something to my audience that they can use right now, that'll make their life better.
That's 100% correct.
Cool.
Yes.
That is cool. And you're also listening for someone who may have a great book, but he or she is so boring, so irrelevant, because you have to protect your audience from them.
Absolutely. Yes.
And if this wasn't live, like I do a lot of interviews, if this was not a live podcast and was taped, you're listening for someone that you have to protect your audience from because they trust you. And you'd have to go back to this person and say, sorry, I love your book, but we can't post your podcast.
Absolutely.
It wasn't a good fit for my audience. What you're really saying is you are horrendous.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's what you're listening for. So now let me try it with your audience. So if you're listening in, and this is a show, and you know what Larry's background is and his passion about the libertarian thing, what you're listening for is it's really important to you to do something about the violence in the world. Actually, what's more important to you is to do something about the pain in the world that drives people to violence.
Yes.
And you're in touch with the pain, and you don't want to make it worse by violence. And what you're listening for, if there was a way to be able to promote what I'm passionate about, in fact, I'll give you a domain. I think I still own it, called violenceiswrong.org.
I love that.
I own that. I think I own it for $10. It's worth 50 unless I sold it. And you can look it up because I might have, I have too many domains. But Violence Is Wrong, I think everyone would agree with that. And so if you're listening in, you want to be able to get that. Across. And the challenge is, everybody knows it intellectually.
Yes.
But how do we get them to take it in and consider it?
This is what I wanted to bring up, right? This is the issue that I talk about all the time. And let me go to two separate pieces here. They're related, but they are separate. The first one is the Libertarian Party is an activist party. We've been losing elections for 50 years, and we're full of people who are activists who don't think we can win, so let's at least be heard. We've been losing elections and winning arguments, so let's keep arguing. And we argue amongst ourselves, and we argue and we yell, and we do things that get people to see us. But we don't do very well when it comes to actually getting elected. We struggle when it comes to that. And what I try to say to the people in the party is, you don't have to be bombastic. You can, and some people will hear that. But as a general rule, you want to somehow connect first. You want to lead with some kind of emotion or empathy before you start yelling at them about some type of policy or wrong in the world. And I struggle often to get the activist part of the party to understand that we want to start with emotion before we go into the logic or even the righteousness of our political party, ending the war on drugs, ending the war on poverty, or ending the foreign wars, right? We often go into, they're evil, just end all the wars. And the average American doesn't want to hear that. The average American wants to understand, how can we be safe? Is every war bad? Are troops bad? And I'd like us to lead more with emotion. And it's a second piece. It's totally different, but I'm going to throw both at you, Dr. Mark, both at you. And the other one is, how do we get to understand that because we don't want cops being aggressive and killing people doesn't mean we hate cops. It means we want to change the system to have better cops. How do we deal with both of those two things?
Okay, so if you're listening in, I'm gonna do some coaching to Larry and your party.
Mm-hmm. Coach away.
You have to be compelling to open people's minds and then convincing to get your point across. The problem for too many people is they come off bombastic and they try to convince before you open people's minds. And I'll tell you what's wrong with being bombastic. What's wrong with it is you take away their freedom to choose to listen to you.
I love that.
And people resent that. Teenagers, libertarians resent it because people want to be able to pause and consider what you're saying and then choose to give you more of their mind share. But if you're already there smacking them with what you're passionate about, they can't choose to listen to you because they feel that you're making them listen to you. And it's a total disconnect from what you stand for.
Sure. Yeah, we've made sure they can't hear us. In fact, we've made them say, now I'm not going to hear you because now you're forcing me. So now I'm not going to hear you.
And so here's how I would reframe it. And they're not going to hear me because, it's a bunch of people who are frustrated, whatever.
Some will hear you. It's okay. Some will.
I would remarket the Libertarian Party with an unsolicited apology. And it goes like this. We're the Libertarian Party. And if you'll give us the chance, we owe you an apology. Nobody gets an unsolicited apology. People are going to say, what? What are you apologizing for? And what you say is, in our eagerness to make the world better for all of us, in our eagerness to get it moving along, we talked over you. We talked over you, and it was out of our eagerness because if you haven't noticed, the world is hemorrhaging. It's hemorrhaging hate, it's hemorrhaging pain, it's hemorrhaging. And we've been hearing it as long as we've been around, and we want to apologize because in our frustration and eagerness to make the world better, we talked over you more than we listened to you.
I like that.
And if you'll give us a second chance, we'd like to listen to you, and we'd like to focus on what you're listening for. And this is what we're picking up, and tell us if we get it right. In fact, we're going to share something, a story about someone who wasn't a libertarian. He was a Republican, but he could have been one of us. You may have heard of him. His name was Abraham Lincoln. And there's a story about Abraham Lincoln. He was a libertarian. What happened is he was going from one town to another, and there was a horse stuck in a ditch.
Okay.
And he rides by at about a half a mile, and then he says to his group, he says, let's go back.
Okay.
And he takes the group back to the horse. And the people in his group said, why did you take us back to the horse? And he looked at them and he said, because I couldn't get the pain of the horse out of my head.
Wow. I love that.
And as libertarians, we can't get the pain and the fear that drives a lot of anger. We can't get it out of our head. But in our eagerness to do something about it, like yesterday, we have alienated you when we want to engage you.
I'm going to steal all of that.
And we need your help because sometimes we get so eager, we pick up speed, we have a case of momentum deafness. You know, when you're on a roll and you have momentum, it feels pretty empowering. And we got to change that because it feels so good to have momentum that you tune out whoever you're talking to. And of all parties, you need to, what we want you to do every time you hear from one of us is we want you to tell other people, have you ever heard about the Libertarian Party? And they say, oh, yeah, it's a bunch of, I know, they've been around forever and they're always hollering. We want you to be able to say, you need to check out the Libertarian Party. Oh, it's no. I know you think it's a fringe group. You need to check them out. Why? Because I checked them out and it's the first party that I felt heard by.
Oh, I like that. The first party that I felt heard by.
And what happened is I felt so heard by them that the hurt started to get less because I don't feel heard by anyone. And you need to check them out. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe the party needs an MRI, but they've gone to a different place. They don't run over you. They're not screaming.
I like this. This is good stuff. I hope people are paying attention. This is amazing stuff. I'm so going to steal it. I got to write you a check now. Is that what I have to do?
No, but the key is you got to live up to that. So the key is that if you're in the Libertarian Party, that you bring someone, a wing person who's going to be candid with you.
Yeah.
And you say to them, at the end of my talk, I want you to rate me. How much did the audience feel that I heard them out without interrupting them? How much did the audience feel that I understood where they were coming from? How much did the audience feel that because I understood where they were coming from, I actually modified part of my thinking to actually serve their need? And I want you to rate me on a scale of 1 to 10 because I want to get better at this. Because if I go and I speak and they never feel heard out, they feel I don't get where they're coming from, they feel I interrupt them, they feel that for a party that's supposedly supposed to be all about them, I make it all about me, I'm doing something wrong and I want to fix it.
I love this. The one thing that I think worked well for me when I ran for governor in 2018 is every one of my conversations that I had, every meeting that I had, I did all of it live, no notes, and everyone was a few minutes of me talking and then Q&A. And I let the room tell me what to talk about. I let the room tell me what they wanted to hear, and I covered issues that the room cared about. You know, traveling across the state, people in County A care about different things than County B. Cities care about different things than rural areas did. So I love that. I did that, I guess, instinctually. I went out of my way to just give them a little bit to say who I was and then say, okay, what do you guys care about? Let's discuss those issues on what you cared about. I found that sometimes I'd be saying the same thing again and again and again, and sometimes not. But I really think that helps tremendously. And I wish more of our politicians would get that. But most of our people are activists who are about screaming and being heard versus saying what you said, connecting with the person so they understand. What I found, and I think it's because of what you just said, what I found is a lot of people disagree with me on different issues. They'll say, Larry, you're wrong on this. Larry, you're wrong on that. I disagree with you on this. But they'll still stay in my world because they know I don't get mad at them. I don't yell at them. I don't call them names. I follow what I call the 80-20 rule, which is if we agree 80% of the time, we're allies, even if we disagree 20%. And I try to keep those people in my world because I believe they are my allies, even though they'll say, no, Larry, you're wrong on this. You're wrong on that. And I think I've managed to grow because I've tried, not always successfully, but I've tried very hard to connect first and to even say when they get mad at me, I'm not mad at you. And that my respect for you doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. In fact, even if you insult me, I still respect you. So I respect you no matter what. It's unconditional. And I think many of them stay with me because of that.
So I'm going to give you some coaching online here. You're
Please.
coachable. You coachable?
Always.
Okay. And I'm saying this, and I wouldn't bother saying this if I didn't know that you come from an incredibly good place inside you. You care enormously about the world.
That's true.
And that's going to enable me to be constructive with you.
Please.
So your energy is, you're like someone who goes, tag, you can't tag me back. You poke, and then you go like this. You poke, and then you come back. And what happens is, and part of that is because, and this is, you'll have to think about this, and we'll probably have to talk offline. You have something called fearful aggression.
I have fearful aggression.
Yeah, what fearful aggression is, and you have to train it out of show dogs and show horses, because when they're afraid, they get aggressive.
Are you telling me I'm a dog?
Well, you're not a dog. What it is you're someone who needs to be heard, and I want to help you with your messaging.
Please.
Because when you poke and then pull back, you're pulling back because there's a part of you that knows unconsciously that you're poking with your passion, but it could provoke someone. So you poke, it could provoke them, and then you pull back. What you need to do is to lead with an invitation. Their first experience of you has to be that you're inviting something from them. So when I spoke to that audience in Moscow, I said, if I get it right, what you're listening for, and I deliver that, you're going to want more.
I love that.
And so I think if you would even say that to anywhere, and if you were to say to your audiences, and I am promoting this, you can say this in one-on-one conversations. If you're having a frustrating conversation with your spouse or your kid, if you just pause and think, what are they listening for? And if you were to say, let's say in your personal life, let's say you have a dicey relationship with your teenager, and they say, leave me alone, do your homework, leave me alone. And if you pause and you say, what's my kid listening for? Gee, my kid is listening for me to not frustrate them so much that the last thing they want to do is homework.
Sure.
They're listening for me to get off their back, because even if I'm trying to get them to do homework, I am actually demotivating them, because what I have to do is keep a lid on it, because I don't want to use some language with mom or dad, but there's
but help me with the audience. Help me. You said I've got this fearful, what'd you call it again? Fearful what?
Fearful aggression.
Fearful aggression. Help me with my audience. Not my daughter. She's good.
Okay. So fearful aggression means there's a part of you that down deep feels, no matter what I say, just because I'm tied to the Libertarian Party, without people even knowing what we do, what we're about, it's going to provoke people who haven't even taken the time to find out what we stand for. Okay. I don't mean to provoke people, but we have a long history of provoking people.
That's true.
And so we don't want to provoke people because we're not foolish. We want to engage them, but our brand is we provoke people. And so knowing that we provoke people, what we do is we try to get a little bit of what we stand for out there, but then we run away because we've provoked them.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And so the fearful aggression is, geez, all I have to say is I'm part of the Libertarian Party and I don't have to say anything else. And suddenly I provoke people. I don't want to provoke people. And so unconsciously, if we believe we're going to provoke them, then we try to get our point across because we stand for something. And then we go like this.
Got it.
And that, but what you really want to do, and I am telling you, there is a power in an unsolicited apology that is unbelievable because very few people get an unsolicited apology in their life.
Absolutely. I love what you said. I'm going to steal it. Absolutely. So you're saying that we have to stop with this or be more I'm a little bit confused by in a daily conversation, right? If I'm accustomed to this forcefulness, am I ending my sentences in a certain way? Am I starting my sentences in a certain way? How am I changing the habit, if that makes any sense, right?
So what's my
habit change?
Okay, so what happens is one of the reasons Trump won and Hillary lost, and I hope it doesn't repeat itself, but Trump was more declarative and Hillary was more explanatory. It was the Declaration of Independence. It wasn't the explanation of independence. And so when someone declares something, you know where they stand. Whereas when someone explains because they want to make their case, they don't want you to think that they're a lightweight. They want you want to show them I've done my homework. But what happens is it feels like the lady doth explain too much.
Yeah.
So the more you explain, coming from I want to make my case, the more the other person can feel you're hiding something unconsciously. And so the way to be declarative is, I don't know that Trump really does it, but the way to be declarative in your tone is that when you say something, you want to make a point, the pitch of your voice should go down a third of an octave to be authoritative. Wow. So as opposed to it picking up speed, because when you pick up speed, this is really important. We got to pay attention. It just escalates the energy. But when you're declarative, you could say, "Are you listening to Dr. Mark on this show? If you're a libertarian, if you're listening to this, he is saying stuff. Here's the going down. He is saying something that's so important. We need to hear it. That's going down.
Got it.
We need to hear what he's saying." Because we have to look in the mirror and say, do we want to be right or do we want to change the world for the better?
Got it.
And too often we come off as needing to be right.
Oh, yes.
And we vent and we get stuff off our chest. But to come from such a good place and not change the world at all is a waste of our energy.
Agreed.
So we have to make a decision. If we want to change the world, we have to speak. We can't speak at the world or over them. We need to speak to them and, if possible, with them.
I love that.
Because nobody speaks with the world. Very few people feel anyone speaks with them. Most people feel people speak over them.
So let's change the subject a little bit. And this is close to the second piece I talked about. You told me something. You said you discovered at one point that you were a racist. Tell me about that. This is something that people are going to want to hear.
Yeah, I worked on the O.J. Simpson trial with the prosecution. So I was an advisor. And and again, I didn't go out the front door because I felt this is a murder trial and it's grandstanding. And, and they say, why don't you go out the front door? I'd say, because it's a circus. And what would happen is I faxed them about 200 pages worth of observations, and they used some of them, and some of them they didn't. Like at the end, I can share something they used. I said, when a jury goes into the deliberation, and you want to have an impact on them, and you can't see them anymore, you want to haunt them. And so one of the ways to haunt them. And Marcia Clark used this. I said, make sure that you play the 911 tapes of Nicole Brown having OJ trying to break in.
Right.
Because there's the murder victim naming the person who murdered her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the not guilty verdict comes out, and the white people said, "Oh, this is an injustice," and the black people said, "Terrific." So I went up to my black friends and I said, "This really feels awful. It feels like the world's stacked against you. I have a feeling that you felt that way." And they said to me, "That's all I've ever felt."
Mm.
And I said, it is so awful for 2 days. Why didn't you tell me it was so bad? And I'm telling you, Larry, they looked me straight in the eye and they said, because you didn't effing want to know.
Mm.
And I went, whoa.
That must have hit you hard.
Oh, it hit me so hard. I didn't like, because they were right. I didn't want to know how bad it was, because if I'm a decent person, it would force me to care. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to care and it got in the way of my little life, I might have to change. But I didn't like what it did to me. So for 3 years, I was a co-host on a urban black radio show. I think it's still on every Monday. It's called the Zoe What Morning Show, Zoe Williams. And there were black co-hosts, very smart activists. You should have them on your show. And I went there because I didn't like, that what I discovered. Mm-hmm. And then there was a show that I was on, and see, I believe in finding talented people who come from goodness and helping them have an impact in the world. So I mentor 30 people at various frequencies from once a week to every 6 years. And to me, a mentor is someone you find a good person and you help them see into their future and land in their future using any means possible. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they can't see into their future because they're too busy with their day job. Yeah, I got to do such and such. And right. So, but I can see what their future is, and sometimes they can't. So I love doing that. And so I love helping any marginalized group land in their future. And there was one show, I think I sent you a link, and they developed. Look, I loved my co-hosts, and I think they loved me. In fact, one of them, Jeff Brown, just this really funny comedian, he said, "Doc, I'm going to have to change the way I think about white people." You're really. I'm having to change things. And I said, "No, don't change it, because the white people don't like me either." And I
just put up, by the way, your article in Psychology Today, dated April 15th, 2015, outing my inner racist. So if anyone's interested in reading that, please.
Yeah, and if you scroll down, you'll see a video that from the show. It's way down. There it is. That's the So What Morning Show. And so here's what I said. I said, I just figured out why systemic racism will not end, and why until white male cops do this. So that's what that video is about. I said, what I realized.
Hold on, I'll play it right now.
T Radio V. Radio in TV.
I also talk about why black women don't like black men. Go on.
Ooh, black women are like, oh, okay, now you're getting controversial. I like this.
You can play this. Why is a white guy like me co-hosting a black radio show? I think toxic relationships cause you to take poor care of yourself. That if you can recognize danger and pause, if you can take some breaths, refocus, and engage, you might be able to dodge a bullet that you're going to send coming towards you. One of the things that men don't get is that often women need to vent first to clear their mind.
Mark Goulston had a point. He said he had some insight on why black women. Why don't you just tell us? I'd rather you tell us.
You jumped into the belly of the beast here. I mean, you didn't. You just said, "I'm going to go in and say." I love this. This is great.
Go on. It's a few minutes. It's worth watching. Can we play it?
Mark Goulston had a point. He said he had some insight on why black women. Why don't you just tell us? I'd rather you
Why
tell
don't
us,
you tell me
Doc.
about black women?
Yeah,
Doc?
tell us about black women. You
'Cause
said
I
you had some
apparently don't
insight on
know.
something, right?
What do I know?
I'm going to throw something out.
You know nothing, Jeff.
Because I try to listen into conversations, and I just got this insight about why black women and maybe all white people don't trust black men. And I think one of the reasons that goes on is, and I'd like the other doctors on the line to weigh in, there's something in psychology called projection. And so if I'm a black woman who is judging a black man, or if I'm a white person judging a black man, you're stuck because I can't believe anything you say other than wanting to attack me or resent me. Because if I was in your shoes as that black man, not being trusted and looked down on, I would have to react. And so you can't. I think black men can't get away from the negative projections of black women and of white people. And so you have. I don't know what the answer is, but if in my mind I'm thinking, boy, if I was you and you and I knew how you were thinking, if I was you, I would be angry. And that you're not angry, I know you're holding back.
Black woman voice.
Uh-oh.
Wow, that was a lot. And some of that, no, that was a lot. I had to take time to just really absorb that, because some of that I do believe is true. You know,
I got to tell you, Dr. Mark, I hear you with that. That was controversial. I didn't think you were going to go there. But you went there. And I think there's part of it that's true. And I remember, my father taught me many things about how to be a black man in America. And one of the things he taught me is when you go into an elevator, always smile and say something like good afternoon or good morning or good evening. Don't say hi, hello, or what's up. You were to say either good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, because that tells the people in the elevator that you have class and you're smiling, so you're not going to attack them. I never got that, but he taught me that.
So listen, so we'll go, let her talk, but you'll hear about the thing, which I think is apropos to how we, the racism that's going on with police.
Okay.
there is a negative projection of black men, and I feel like I fight constantly not to absorb that in my psyche. But then again, I feel like issues, they cannot be above reproach, because I find that when we want to deal with real issues or mistakes that we make or that black men make, just the very mention of it, oh, you're attacking me, and I'm already so attacked. So I'm like, where is the space to lovingly deal with genuine issues and conflicts that rise in the community without him always feeling so over attacked and being defensive?
But I don't think he's being paranoid to feel he has two strikes against him, and that there's always a bullseye on him with these two strikes against him.
But then again, I believe the black
because
man
of the
is a God.
projections.
I believe it's God, so I believe in him. I believe in him. I believe in
But
him.
I think you're a minority.
Your ability to win. So a part of my frustration comes from me saying, like, you're a king. Like, why are you?
Yeah.
Act
That's good
like
stuff,
it.
Bobby.
Act like it.
Bobby?
I'm proud of Doc for expressing a point of view that a lot of people would have been afraid to do so.
That's what I said, Dr. Mark. I agree with that, man. That was bold. That was bold of you to do that. And I respect you even more for saying it and going down that road. I think what the woman said was important too.
So here's the point I want to make, just so that your listeners get it. Because this is what we need to do to stop racism, at least from white police officers to black, especially black males.
Oh, by the way, are we done with this video for now?
No, play a little bit, see how it finishes. Go on.
Okay, then I'll take it off.
And within that construct, whether you black, white, or whatever color, it's all internal. At some point, for me, it is anyway. And I had to evolve to that point. I had to get there. And it took a lifetime to realize it's not so much what you say or she says, it's how I feel. Now, if I can't tell you how I feel, or if you take it the wrong way, then I need to distance myself from that as quickly as possible, because the only thing that I do have is the ground beneath my feet. And I claim that honestly, because I didn't come in this world to be a problem to you or her or anybody in this room. And that's a constant evolving position that goes on between my ears. And I think it's important that as we deal with these issues of saving somebody or not, or whether your intentions are right, you have to make that determination for yourself and then stand on that and stand firmly.
All right. So thank you for that.
So the point I want to make is if I'm a white cop and I know that I've been treating you unfairly, that I've been profiling you, that I pull you over, that whatever, in my mind, I'm projecting you got to be angry at me because I would be angry at me if someone just pulled me over arbitrarily. If someone just pulled me over and profiled me, I know I would be angry at me. So if I'm a white cop, I am convinced you're angry at me and I'm looking for signs of it. So that's projection. And then I look for something called confirmation bias. So I'm looking for the least thing. And then if you show that you're frustrated in my mind, which is already agitated, I say, see, I told me so. He's frustrated. The next step is he's going to be violent. I therefore have fearful aggression. I therefore have justification to preemptively protect myself because he's frustrated. The next step is he's going to be violent. And the point is until, and I will tell you, as long as human beings have a brain and mind, we all project.
Of course.
And the point is, until we realize that we're projecting sometimes hostile feelings in other people who aren't hostile, they're more afraid. They're more, you know what I've said to you when I've done some trainings. I've said, you're projecting hostility on these blacks, especially the black males. They're not angry at you. They're afraid you're going to shoot them. They're not coming from anger. They see a black and white and they say, I'm going to get killed. But you're projecting on them hostility. And then and because they're uptight, they get a little frustrated. You say, oh, he's frustrated. You put your hand on your gun. It's interesting. I was part of something, and we may revisit it because the prior sheriff of LA was a big fan of this. But I was part of something called the POP Protocol.
POP Protocol.
And you can go to popprotocol.org. And what we did trainings in 15 high schools, and POP stands for Pullover Protocol.
Ah, okay.
And it teaches you what to do when a cop pulls you over. And there was a acronym. I can't remember it, but the first thing is put your hands on the steering wheel or outside.
Yep.
Palms up. Because if you're black, your palms are white. Sometimes they can't see the back of your hand. Show your palms. Be respectful. Don't provoke. Ask permission. Officer, my license is in the glove compartment. Do I have your permission to reach for it? Be respectful. And so the POP protocol was taught by cops, some black, some white, and the results were amazing. We did a press conference with the prior sheriff, but then he lost, and the results, there was like a 90% change in a view towards cops by these high schoolers. They were asked, does this affect the way you look at cops? They said, yeah, I never thought of them as, I just thought of them, they were out to give us a hard time. So it created a dialogue in the community, but because of the politics of everything, we're hoping the new sheriff will say, this is a good program, but, I'm not a great fan. I know libertarian parties about politics. I'm not a great fan of politics because I think the world is hurting too much to be left to politicians.
Oh, I like the way that sounds. It's nice. But I guess that there's a side to that seems awkward, right? The side of what you just said is it almost makes it as if it is the job of the citizen to bow to the cop and not the job of the cop to change and bow to the citizen, if that makes any sense. So
but the training is dual directional. And the idea, if you go to popprotocol.org, we were going to give out stickers to civilians who've been trained. You put it on the car because then you're less unknown. Because when a cop pulls you over at night and it's dark, they don't know what's in the car. Sure. So they're already upset. But if they see that you've been trained, they're already a little calmer because it means, you're less likely. Because if I was a cop, I'd be scared if it's in the middle of the night and it's dark. And let's say I see an old plate and the windows are darkened, whether I was a black cop or a white cop, I'd be a little bit scared. And so the idea is if someone has been trained, a high schooler, and then the cops are trained, it's to lessen the agitation, the projection.
So the training is dual. It's not just on the kid. Got it. Okay.
So, but a lot of times, a lot of kids, don't know what to do when you're pulled over. And it was interesting because it was picking up speed, and it was all set to go into the Department of Motor Vehicles test quiz. I mean, it was picking up speed, and then because of politics, the old sheriff lost.
Yep.
And there's a new sheriff in town, literally. And so maybe it'll get picked up. And the co-founders are two African Americans, two great guys. I love these guys. And and I was kind of a partner, but I stayed in the background because
I get it.
This needed to be their deal. But maybe we'll revive it because it's still going on. People, don't know what to do at traffic stops.
Yeah, I think it can be a problem, but I like that both are being trained. It gets the student and the cop to kind of connect, right? Connect. You want the cop to realize that not everyone's trying to get them, and you want the student to realize every cop's not trying to get them, right? Everyone's not trying to get you. If you both understand that, then obviously you're going to start to make things a whole lot easier. You actually wrote something. You sent something to me. This was something you wrote in 2019. Systematic racism will continue. Let me share this one so you see what this one is also.
Yeah, so you can find that. That's on Medium. So if you just look up my name, systemic racism, and the idea is, I think until people own their projections, they're going to go down that path, and those are all the steps there. I made it a little more complicated, but what happens is
it's actually simple. It's 6 steps. That's good.
Yeah, if you project hostile feelings on someone else that they don't have, and then you say, "Oh, they're hostile towards me. That gives me the right to snap at them," then it just escalates. But I think it's going to be unlikely to get people, especially people who are a little bit command and control, people who go into the law enforcement. It's going to be it's very difficult to get people to own their projections.
Sure. Well, we want to be righteous, right? So my projection, I'm righteous. You're the crazy one, Mark, not me.
Yeah. And so if we flip back to the Libertarian Party, because the Libertarian Party has a similar kind of thing. You're projecting on audiences. You don't want to hear what we have to say, even though we're against violence. We've been against violence forever, but you're projecting on them. They've already discounted us. They've already dismissed us. And so I'm going to get at least 2 or 3 sentences in because they're already looking at us like we're too fringe. So you're projecting on them. And then what happens is it gets you agitated. And then what happens is you pull a Larry and you point out, you poke, and then you go like this. Whereas what you need to do is you need to lead with an invitation. And I am telling you, if you say to someone, and you can do this in your personal life, if you would contact, say, you can take this one. I'm going to give you a game changer in your personal life.
Okay.
If you reach out to someone in your personal life and there's tension between you, and you reach out to them or you text them and you say, "When can I get 5 minutes of your undivided attention?" And it's not, and it's not cancer, it's not bankruptcy, it's not anything bad, but I want your undivided attention because I owe you an apology. They're going to go, "What?" And what I suggest when I coach people is, no, let them be curious, because they'll give it to you right there and there. You can say, no, let's do it when I can get, well, it's right there. No, I'm in the middle of something. And they're so curious. And so imagine this, you go up to them and they're looking at you. What's this about? And then you look at them and you look them straight in the eye and you say, "At my absolute worst, how awful am I capable of making you feel about yourself or us?" They're going to go, "What?" "Yeah, when I'm at my worst, how awful am I capable of making you feel about yourself or us?" And if this is a
It's deep.
If there's a spouse, you could say, maybe even pushed you to thinking that it was a real mistake to be together with me, and now you're trapped. They're gonna start to cry. And then what happens is, if you can see the pain underneath all the anger they've been delivering at you, they're going to tell you. And the point is, since you are in charge of the conversation, as opposed to, you don't get defensive.
Right.
What you're doing is you're enabling them to get stuff off their chest that they haven't been able to, because if they get it off their chest, you get defensive, you get angry. You say you're being too emotional.
Benjamin just posted, that sounds like a real uncomfortable conversation, right? That's hard to do.
Oh, it's almost impossible, but I'll tell you, if you stick, but I'm telling you, if you stick to it and they say something, you look in their eyes, because you're not getting defensive, you're basically doing a rope-a-dope. You're doing a Muhammad Ali, letting them get stuff off their chest. And then when they say, if you look in their eyes, they're going to start to tear up with relief. And then what you say, tell me about a moment when I was just awful. And they're going to tell you safely something they could never tell you because you get too angry. And then if you do that, they're going to tear up even more. And I'll tell you, some people have done this and they say it was the most intimate moment they've had in 10 years. And then what you say is, if you're tracking with me, you say, look at me. And they're going to look at you. Their eyes are going to be bloodshot. You could say, I was wrong and you deserve better, and I'm going to fix this, and I'm sorry.
That's deep. That a lot of people, I feel like, to do that, you as the individual, the person going to do that, if I'm going to do that to you, I've got to have some real inner confidence in myself, or I've got to have a strong enough ego to take what you're going to give me. I've got to be able to not react and be angry when you call me out on stuff that I might not think is true, or I believe is true, or that hurts me. That's a lot for me to do.
That's a lot. But if I were to say to you, okay, so if I'm doing this with Larry as my foil here, if I were to say, Larry, I understand it's a lot to do, but let me ask you, would you rather be right or make the situation better? Because if it doesn't get better, and it doesn't get better soon, you're going to get divorced. And people will go, whoa. Yeah, because if you need to be right and you need to win, it ain't getting better soon.
Yep.
And again, I hope I'm not coming off as judgmental. I hope when I gave you feedback, I wasn't, I want you to be the best version of yourself, Larry, because
sure.
you bring goodness into the world, and I don't want your messaging to get in the way of the people hearing the good that you bring into the world.
I love that. No, I wasn't upset at all. I'm happy to hear it. I wouldn't have live shows of people like you on it if I wasn't prepared to take it. To be full with you, I've done something similar with my wife. My wife and I have almost been divorced 3 times. We've been together for 20 years. Somehow we've survived. But we've almost been divorced 3 times. And one of those times, it was kind of both of us, meaning trying to bring it back together. One of it was her trying to bring it back together. And one of it was me trying to bring us back together. And when I did it, I did something very similar to what you said. I basically said, I know we have bad blood in certain ways, a lot of bad stuff we've done to each other. We've hurt each other. But I love you, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to fix it. Whether you act or not, I'm going to fix it.
Perfect.
That's what I said. I'm going to fix it, whether you act or not. And that worked. Initially she was mad at me and she hit me hard. And as you know, people who love you know exactly how to hurt you. And we hurt each other, and she hurt me that day, and I did not strike back. She hurt me that day, and I still try to fix it. And we fixed our marriage. I mean, at least as of today. So we're together today.
Because what happened is you made it safe for the other person to get the anger out. See, but you have to see, look, I've trained hostage negotiators. I was a suicide specialist. I'm retired now, and please, I feel for you, but I'm not seeing anyone. And a lot of people contact me. You got to talk to my son. You got to talk to such and such. I do presentations to schools and to
Mhm.
parent bodies and yada, yada, yada. But, I'm retired. I'm not licensed to do this stuff anymore. But, oh, geez, we're just about out of time, aren't we? Okay.
We are. It's okay. Keep going.
Okay. So let me bring up the top.
All I want to say is I get it. It's hard, and I hope people heard it, because I think you're totally right. I think this really can work. It's just difficult. And, when I talk to people about conflict resolution, when I do my trainings, right, I talk to people about when there's conflict, how do you deal with the conflict when you feel like you've been wronged, right? You feel like the other person has wronged you and you feel like they should be apologizing to me. So why should you go up and try to fix this? And my answer is always the same, because somebody has to. And if you're the leader, be the leader and try to fix it.
Well, I'll give you a single tip that can
Please.
stop any conflict in its tracks. And I think you'll smile because you're going to like this one. The single tip to stop any argument or conflict in its tracks is, if you can pause instead of reloading, if you can pause and ask yourself, what's it like for the other person right now? If you can be curious about what's it like, you'll realize that they're not angry, that they're hurt, they're discouraged. I did that with my wife about 30 years ago, and she was reloading and I was reloading. And then I paused and I said to her, you don't like where this is going any more than I do. Because I asked, what's it like for her? Well, she didn't like where it was going because, it was going to be another one of those things where, when I sleep in the den. And I realized she didn't like where it was going. And so instead of it escalating, I said, you don't like where this is going? She said, no, I can't stand it when these things happen. And I looked at her and I said, do you have any idea how we can keep it from going there? And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, no, but you're doing good.
I like that. Nice. You knew you were winning. All right. We're doing good. I like that. That's great. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's amazing. Well, look, you've given us empathy lessons. You've talked about cops. You've talked about messaging. You saved our marriages all in an hour. That's amazing. Is there anything else you want to talk about or bring up before we kind of wrap this up?
Okay, so one of my passions is preventing teen suicide. I'm partnering with someone whose son killed himself 2 years ago, and we do presentations. And there's something that I came up called the 10 words.
10 words.
The 10 words. And if you have a teenager who you're worried about, who's in a dark place, and they don't want to talk about it, what my friend told me is, when you're a teenager, you say, how you doing? And they say, I'm great, they're good. And when they say, I'm fine, they're not. And what you say to them is, you can, even if they don't want to talk about it, you say, I got 10 words. And they say, what? And you say, I'm just going to say 10 words. And I want you to think of you when you're feeling your worst and tell me which one you connect with. I don't know if I'll remember them. Anxious. What do you say? Anxious, depressed, frustrated, angry, afraid, ashamed, alone, lonely, exhausted, numb.
Ouch. Okay.
And so the point is, you're giving them all the words that people feel when they're in a bad place. And when you enable them to say the word that they felt when they're in a bad place, it helps them get some of it off their chest.
So if you say the 10 words, one of them at least they will connect with, and then will they respond?
They'll express it, but you have to be inviting as opposed to standing off. You have to, what you want to do is you want to drain the abscess that's at the dark night of the soul. And these 10 words will help pierce the hopelessness in the dark night of the soul. And when they say afraid or depressed, the next thing is you say, how bad does it get at its worst? And they'll tell you. And then you say, take me to that moment. And when they share with you some moment at 3 a.m, and you don't try and fix it, and you watch them, they're going to start to cry with relief. And you didn't make them cry, you let them cry. And when they cry with relief. You say what we said before. You're going to say to your spouse, you could say, I need your help. I can't allow you to be alone in hell. But you have to tell me when you're there. In fact, you have to do whatever you can to get your mom or my attention. And we'll do our best to be there because I don't want you to be alone there.
I love it. When my daughter has been in those places, she's 16 now. When she's been in those places, what I literally just do is lay with her and let her talk. I literally just lay with her. I don't try to fix a thing.
Absolutely.
I don't give her any answers. I just lay with her and let her talk. And when she gets angry, I go, yeah, I get it. You're angry. I don't have the 10 words. Now I have them. Then I didn't have the 10 words. All I had was I tried to say what I thought she was feeling.
Okay,
I feel like you're anxious. Is that right? Or I feel like you're angry. And she go, yeah. And I go, oh, it's terrible. And she just keep talking. And that's all I would do.
So I would amend that because you want to drain the abscess. And so if she says angry or anxious, what you say to her is how anxious. And then she'll say it. And then you'll say, at its worst, how bad does it get for you?
Got it.
It'll come out even more. And then you'll say, honey, look at me. And she'll say, what? I don't want you to feel alone in hell, but I need your help to tell me when you're going there.
Right. That's great. I love that. So you've saved our kids now. You are amazing. You are magical. For people who want more, please go to markgoulston.com. If you've got an organization that you think he could help, let him know. If you've got something that you think, you want to buy his books, please buy his books. I have them all. I read them. They're amazing. The one that I thought was funny when I heard it was Talking to Crazy. That was a great book, but I just thought the title was amazing. So yes, if you want to head over to markgoulston.com, buy his books, talk to him. If you have an organization that needs help like this, like our party, talk to him and make it happen. Dr. Mark Goulston, thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'd be happy to speak to your party, and we'll brainstorm how to get your message across, unless you'd just rather be right.
Well, sadly, some of us would rather be right. That's true, but let's hope enough of us actually want to try to make impact. That's what I want to hope. So thank you for coming aboard. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow.